Welcome back to this new inspirational video. Now the second chapter is titled, There is a Science of Getting Rich. And it starts out the following way. There is a science of getting rich, and it is an exact science. Like algebra or arithmetic, there are certain laws which govern the process of acquiring riches. Once these laws are learned and obeyed by any man, he will get rich with mathematical certainty. The ownership of money and property comes as a result of doing things in a certain way. Those who do things in this certain way, whether on purpose or accidentally, get rich, while those who do not do things in this certain way, no matter how hard they work or how able they are, remain poor. Now it's interesting that he terms it this certain way. The first reader of such a book like this might wonder, what does he mean by a certain way? It sounds rather vague, it doesn't really explain anything in this moment of time, but he's going to explain it later on in the book itself. But in the end of the day, we really want to burn into our minds right here and now that the certain way simply means that one individual is operating with a clear vision of where they want to go with their lives, of how successful they want to become with whatever they're doing. And the other person doesn't have a vision like that. They might say, I would like to be successful, but they don't have a clear concept of what that means. So if you want to start living in the certain way, to start winning in life, you're going to have to understand right here and now that you're going to have to use your imagination to build a vision of where you want to go. To know exactly where you want to go, so that you can build your way towards it. That is a difference between a rich person and a poor person, or between the one that succeeds in life and the one that doesn't. Now Wallace went on to say, it is a natural law that like causes always produce like effects, and therefore any man or woman who learns to do things in a certain way will infallibly get rich. That the above statement is true is shown by the following facts. Getting rich is not a matter of environment, for if it were, all the people in certain neighborhoods would become wealthy. The people of one city would all be rich, while those of other towns would all be poor. Or the inhabitants of one state would roll in wealth, while those of an adjoining state would be in poverty. But everywhere we see rich and poor living side by side, in the same environment, and often engaged in the same vocations. When two men are in the same locality and in the same business, and one gets rich while the other remains poor, it shows that getting rich is not primarily a matter of environment. Some environments may be more favorable than others, but when two men in the same business are in the same neighborhood and one gets rich while the other fails, it indicates that getting rich is the result of doing things in a certain way. Again, remember, one person has a clear vision and the other doesn't. It's so obvious. If you study this book for long enough, it becomes so obvious what he meant. But I remember it took me a while before I grasped it entirely. Even after reading the whole book, I still was kind of questioning, what does this certain way exactly mean? But now I do understand after 12 years of studying this book, and you're going to understand it if you pay close attention. Now further, the ability to do things in this certain way is not due solely to the possession of talent. For many people who have great talent remain poor, while others who have very little talent get rich. Studying the people who have got rich, we found that they are an average lot in all respects, having no greater talents and abilities than other men. It is evident that they do not get rich because they possess talents and abilities that other men have not, but because they happen to do things in a certain way. Getting rich is not the result of saving or thrift. Many very penurious people are poor, while free spenders often get rich. Nor is getting rich due to doing things which others fail to do. For two men in the same business often do almost exactly the same things, and one gets rich while the other remains poor or becomes bankrupt. From all these things, we must come to the conclusion that getting rich is the result of doing things in a certain way. If getting rich is the result of doing things in a certain way, and if like causes always produce like effects, that any man or woman who can do things in that way can become rich, and the whole matter is brought within the domain of exact science. Now you better believe it, baby. This is true. This is so freaking true. Because you can do this right now. You can make a decision right now that you're going to live your life in a certain way so that you can achieve whatsoever you desire. You see, if you don't make that decision, you're gonna not be able to do it. But if you do make the decision, wonderful things will start to happen as you keep studying the material along with me as we go through these videos. You have to really pay attention to what's being said here and really think it through for yourself. Maybe listen to it a couple of times so it really sinks in. Now he went on to say, The question arises here whether this certain way may not be so difficult that only a few may follow it. This cannot be true, as we have seen, so far as natural ability is concerned. Talented people get rich, and blockheads get rich. Intellectually brilliant people get rich, and very stupid people get rich. Physically strong people get rich, and weak and sickly people get rich. Now, some degree of ability to think and understand is, of course, essential. But insofar natural ability is concerned, any man or woman who has sense enough to read and understand these words can certainly get rich. Also, we have seen that it is not a matter of environment. Location counts for something. One would not go into the heart of the Sahara and expect to do successful business. Getting rich involves the necessity of dealing with a man and of being where there are people to deal with. And if these people are inclined to deal in the way you want to deal, so much the better. But that is about as far as environment goes. Now, you also have to understand here that this book was written over 100 years ago, so some examples he gives about doing business in the Sahara and stuff might not be accurate in our day and age by now, because there is business all over the place by now in all sorts of locations that he probably couldn't have dreamed of at the time. But that's the beauty of life. It always keeps expanding, keeps expressing itself more fully. And that's what your individual life is about. It's about expansion and fuller expression of who you are, and you can start doing that by living in the certain way. Now, if anybody else in your town can get rich, so can you. And if anybody else in your state can get rich, so can you. Have you ever considered this for yourself? Really think about it. Do you know somebody in your town that is rich, or in your state that is rich, that you may be seen on the news? Have you ever considered the fact that you could get rich just like them? No, what happens usually is that people are like, well, these people must be lucky, or they can do something that I can't, so, they can be rich, but I can't. Why do we have these limiting ideas about ourselves? We can get away from them if we control our minds. That's the first job that we have. Actually, the main job throughout our existence is to control the mind, so we can start living in a certain way, which means building a vision of where you want to go, being absolutely clear, this is what I want, and then build towards it. Go for it, never let it go. That's how you become a success in life. That's how you can become rich. If you have a vision of wealth in your mind, of living a wealthy lifestyle, you can build your life according to that vision. Because as Wallace said, it is not a matter of choosing some particular business or profession. People get rich in every business and in every profession, while their next door neighbors in the same vocation remain in poverty. It is true that you will do best in a business which you like and which is congenial to you. And if you have certain talents which are well developed, you will do best in a business which calls for the exercise of those talents. Really think about that as well for yourself. Where are you right now in your life? Are you following a job that you don't really enjoy? Well, you don't have to be stuck there. In fact, you want to start analyzing for yourself, what am I passionate about? What am I good at? What talents do I actually have? Because we all have certain talents, as he would say, that are well developed. And you will do best in a business which calls for the exercise of those talents. That's what I dedicate my time to. I'm passionate about what I'm doing through these videos and sharing more about consciousness, and I'm also very passionate about studying it for myself and helping people grasp it a little better so that they can hopefully change their lives around in a great and optimistic and positive way. That's my passion, but what's yours? And then if you know what you're passionate about, have you considered a way that you can turn it into a business? What sort of business would you operate if you were to exercise those talents? It's a fascinating question, one that most people don't ask. But if we start asking ourselves that, we can find a way to live an even greater life than we're already doing. Now, Wallace also went on to say, you will do best in a business which is suited to your locality. And then he gives them a few examples about an ice cream parlor would do better in a warm climate, and a salmon fishery would do better in Florida. But aside from these general limitations, getting rich is not dependent upon your engaging in some particular business, but upon your learning to do things in a certain way. If you are now in business and anybody else in your locality is getting rich in the same business, while you are not getting rich, it is because you are not doing things in the same way that the other person is doing them. I have analyzed this paragraph very carefully, and there was a time in my life that in the town where I'm living right now was another YouTuber who had hundreds of thousands of subscribers. And I only had a few thousand, right, at the time. This was a couple years ago by now, with a different channel. But I realized, as I was analyzing this paragraph, I was thinking, okay, this person is clearly getting rich and successful with what he's doing, and I'm just starting out, so how can I sort of emulate that same power, that same result in my life? Well, after careful consideration, I knew it had everything to do with my focus, with how passionate I really am and what I'm doing with the content that I'm creating, and then it unleashes the flames of desire within my soul, and I keep going, I keep creating, I keep sharing stuff through my YouTube channel because that's what I really want to do with my time. And as I kept becoming more and more intense on that, I also started to see my channel grow and grow back then, seeing bigger and better results, similar results than he was getting. So that's beautiful. That is exactly true. And this is something you have to dare do for yourself as well, to look at people who are already successful at what you're passionate about doing and analyze how they are going about it so that you can learn from them. You can learn to emulate their mentality first and foremost. You don't want to copy exactly what they're doing, but you do want to emulate their mindset. That is the most important point, that you emulate that aspect, because that again ties into living in a certain way. Many people are doing this unconsciously, so don't be surprised that even very successful people sometimes cannot articulate why they are successful. They might say, I work hard. Well, that's true, maybe they are, but it's not the real cause for their success. It's the vision that they're holding inside their minds. So a person in your locality that is now rich in the same business as you, understand that they're operating with a clear vision, whether consciously or unconsciously, it doesn't matter. And you can start doing this consciously so you can start getting rich and successful yourself. That's what you really want to burn into your mind, to get rid of all the doubts that are holding you back. You don't have to stay stuck there. Now, Wallace went on to say, no one is prevented from getting rich by lack of capital. True, as you get capital, the increase becomes more easy and rapid. But one who has capital is already rich and does not need to consider how to become so. No matter how poor you may be, if you begin to do things in a certain way, you will begin to get rich, and you will begin to have capital. The getting of capital is a part of the process of getting rich, and it is a part of the result which invariably follows the doing of things in a certain way. Now, you may be the poorest man on the continent and be deeply in debt. You may have neither friends, influence, nor resources, but if you begin to do things in this way, you must infallibly begin to get rich, for alike causes must produce alike effects. If you have no capital, you can get capital. If you are in the wrong business, you can get into the right business. If you are in the wrong location, you can go to the right location. And you can do so by beginning in your present business and in your present location to do things in a certain way which causes success. Now, this is so fascinating because I remember in 2008 when I first read this final paragraph of his, it almost brought me to tears. I'm not even joking. At the time, as I was reading this book, my mom just died in a very tragic manner, and I was just very lost. I didn't really know what to do with my life. And even though I wasn't the poorest man on the continent, thank God, I also wasn't deeply in debt either. I had friends, so I was also not without friends, but I didn't have any influence nor real resources to build my way out of this situation at the time. That's what I felt like. So when I read this paragraph, I held on to that for my life. I remember thinking, because it brought me almost to tears, I was like, this is so beautiful and this gives me so much hope that I can still make something great out of my life in spite of all the negatives that happened to me. Where he said, you may be the poorest man on the continent and be deeply in debt. I know there's some viewers of mine that are in debt right now, that may be poor even. They might not have neither friends, I don't know about that. No influence nor resources, but as he said, if you begin to do things in this way, you must infallibly begin to get rich. For like causes must produce like effects. Well, what way are we supposed to do things from now on? In the certain way. What is the certain way? Well, in later chapters, as I said earlier, we'll get into that more specifically, but I still want to remind you of the fact that the certain way of living means something like the following. First, you have a vision of where you want to go. You allow that vision to control the way you think. And then you allow that vision and thinking to influence the way you feel. And then as you feel this excitement and passion and desire for the realization of that imaginative vision, then you want to start acting physically upon the dream. And that's when it starts moving into form. And then the certain way is understood from the right angle, which, as he ended this chapter by saying, causes success. The certain way causes success. I have literal proof of this. I can see things that I do expand in my world if I operate from what he suggested I should do. And it's the same for you. So I hope you're looking forward to seeing some amazing results in your life, because they will happen if you apply everything that's being taught to you through these videos. Now, if you're new to this channel, consider subscribing to receive inspirational videos on a regular basis. And with that being said, dear viewer, never forget that we are the dreamers.